Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another Real Talk. We have a very special edition this time. We have women in their 70s that will be sharing their jiu-jitsu journey. We're talking about all things women in their 70s. When I first started out these series, we started in our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. I thought 60s would be it, but I started looking at women in their 60s and reaching out, and most of them were in their 70s. So here we are. We're doing a 70s issue, and I think it's super perfect. We can have so much to learn from these ladies. It's an honor to have all of you on. Thank you so much. Lily, if you'll go ahead and introduce yourself, we'd love to get to know a little bit more about you.
And I teach Jiu Jitsu and MMA, and yeah, I train a few days a week, and also teaches almost every day.
Excellent. And we'll go ahead and start talking about when you started training, but you have a really interesting story. So thank you so much. If Elaine, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Elaine Byersdorfer. I started at 69, sort of late. I'm 75 now. So it's mainly just persistence, and I just like the fighting, as strange as that is at my age. It's really fun for me. So I've been hanging in.
Excellent.
Hi, my name is Marion, and I am 71 years old, and I started Jiu-Jitsu when I was 58. I've always been involved in very pacific kind of martial arts like yoga. Then I went into Taekwondo, and long story short, I ended up starting Jiu-Jitsu, and I hung in there. I received my black belt a year and a half ago, and here I am.
Oh, wow.
So I'm curious, how did you ladies get started? What drew you to jiu-jitsu or martial arts? Did you have any previous martial arts experience going into jiu-jitsu?
Yes, I did. I started actually with yoga, and when I used to go to the yoga classes while I was waiting. I saw that there were people in another part of the gym. This was in New York Sports Club, so it was a humongous gym, and they were doing something very strange, and it wasn't jujitsu, but I said, I want to learn how to do that because I need to learn how to defend myself. So I kind of started doing that, and then I started getting hurt, and then because I was a woman and I was older than everybody, somehow I got invited to leave the school because I had reached the very, very top, and I wasn't going to get a black belt. So I kind of got the message, and I somehow ended up in a women's open mat in Pennsylvania. I didn't know what they were doing at the open mat, but when I drove back from Pennsylvania with my girlfriend, I said, I want to do that. And I looked around. I have to tell you, it was not easy to find a school because everybody suggested that I took fitness classes. They couldn't see, 13, 14 years ago, there were very fewer women than now, let alone older women. So they didn't know what to do with someone like me. But I did find a school in Stamford, Connecticut, and the rest is history.
I'm 73. When I was 41, whole family signed up for judo, and so we did judo for 10 years, and at age 51, I started training in jiu-jitsu, and I got the black belt when I was 60.
Oh.
So, and I still enjoy training. Like I train with almost everybody at the gym, but train smart, spar, but just work on specific techniques, and things like that. So yeah, avoiding injury is my number one thing. So
Also, I had taken a judo course when I was very young, in my 20s. It was a 6-week course while my husband was in college. And it was so much fun. When we got back to our hometown, I went, I think I'd like to do that, but nobody taught it. I mean, nobody. And I was 69 when I found a school that taught judo, and I called them and said, do you take old people? And the professor who owned the gym went, yeah, sure. And so I went into the class. I had teenage boys on one side. I had guys that looked like the NFL on the other side. I was the only girl and scared the professor to death. I say, well, you can throw it, but carefully, that sort of thing. And I kept saying, I'm fine. But after a few months, he said, why don't you try Jiu Jitsu, which was on the next mat? And he taught both classes. So I'd do a judo class. I'd move over and do Jiu Jitsu, which I loved. And I sort of stayed with Jiu Jitsu because I can get somewhere better with them. And he's always been very, very encouraging. He's the one that took me to my first competition, which I had no idea what to do. But hey, when he said I'm going, then I guess I went. It's just that simple.
That's amazing. It's amazing because all of you kind of started later in life, which is pretty amazing to go into martial arts, especially with no prior experience earlier on. What was it, just something that something in you that just attracted you to it? Or is it something that maybe you thought about when you were younger? Like, you know what, I'd really like to do martial arts. But, I talked to some women in their 60s, and growing up, it wasn't very ladylike, right? To be wrestling and grappling. So in their generation, it really wasn't accepted as it is today for these younger girls, where it's normal. Right? These younger girls that are coming up, it's normal to be kind of masculine and strong and fight. And so I'm curious of your perspective on that.
Well, for me, I never did martial arts. I grew up with a very, very strict German father, and that was a no-no for the girls. Anything like that would only be for the guys. And but when I was about 10 or 11, somehow my mother started taking judo classes. I never went to her judo classes because she went while we were in school, but I know she reached a brown belt, and I thought, oh my goodness, that is so cool. And I kept coming across judo, but somehow yoga always got in my face. So I did the yoga, and I was doing some research, and I realized, oh, yoga is a martial arts. Well, let me see what other martial arts there are. So then that's how I got started, and there was nobody to tell me I couldn't do anything. And I did not want to get involved in something very brainy, but they said to me, you should try Taekwondo because it's a lot of kicks. You have a lot of strength in your legs. Oh, sure, why not? And when I got involved in that, then I got somehow introduced to arm bars and things like that. But we were never shown how do you get into one and you get out of one. We just showed how to do one. And I just couldn't handle that. I needed to find out, okay, what do you do with these cool things? That's how I had my interest piqued. And I can be very nosy at times, but I'm also very persistent. So I wasn't very sporty when I was younger, but after in my 30s, 40s, I don't know, something happened, and I discovered I really loved the sport. So
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
What about you, Elaine?
Well, yeah, I would say for me, it's probably somewhat of a mindset. I had 2 older brothers. They did a lot of roughhousing with me, so I was used to getting banged around and thrown around and throwing punches and stuff like that. I did a wrestling a lot of in grammar school. If the boys were out wrestling on the field, I was out there with them at 4 foot nothing almost. And my husband has been one of those, is, Elaine, if that's what you want to do, just go ahead. I don't care. I'm not doing it, but if you want to, just go, you know. So the challenge of it probably keeps me going too. I really like the challenge. It is fun though. It sort of fits my personality, weird as that sounds. As soon as I got married, I said to Werner, I'm married to a German, by the way. I said, I want to jump out of an airplane. He said, go ahead. I don't care. And I did. I went up and parachuted out of an airplane in my 20s. And it whatever happened to just, he never had a, this is a girl's thing and this is a guy's thing. I could be cutting the grass, he'd be in vacuuming the house. You know, it's never been really a his or her thing. So whatever I happened to want to do, he was, go ahead, you know. Makes you happy, go ahead. So he's really been very supportive. He goes to the competitions and cheers me on, and he thinks I'm nuts, but
Yeah, I've been tomboy all my life, and I have two younger brothers, but yeah, always like wrestling and just sword fighting or things like that. So like my parents' old friends remember as three boys, you know. Yeah, so and like I was born and raised in Japan, and they they weren't so friendly, you know, with the women for martial arts. So I did both of my brothers did martial arts, but I was mostly doing like skiing or windsurfing things, other sports. Then and I didn't really appreciate much, you know, Japanese martial arts like judo when I was in Japan. But after I moved here, like more appreciative of different traditional martial arts and stuff. So yeah, did I really enjoyed the judo, but just wanted to explore, so starting jiu-jitsu. Yeah.
Very cool. No, I mean, all of you come from such interesting and such very different backgrounds. And it's really awesome to see that you all have found jujitsu. I'm curious, and some of you had touched on it. When coming into jujitsu later in life, did any of you experience any kind of ageism, or have you experienced any kind of ageism in the sport? And can you share a little bit about your experience and maybe something we can learn from it, or something you learned from that experience?
It does happen. And yes, I did experience, I think I've experienced it a couple of times, 2 or 3 times in different places. People oftentimes don't believe that I want to do what I do, and they see me getting on the mats, they really don't know what to do with me. Oh look, so I just approach it very nonchalant as much as I can. I say hello to everybody. I have to trust the person that's throwing me. They have to be able to hold me. I've been thrown a couple of times, and it's taken me very long to recover. It's one of the throws was really, really bad. And it's not because I don't know how to hit the mat. It's because as you get older, I think, and everybody has different kinds of injuries, even though I've been pretty lucky. I've had them. I just really try and be careful. My bones don't recover as fast as they used to. I can even tell the difference from now when I was when I was 60. I can really tell the difference in the last 10 years. But all I do is I'm friendly and with everybody, and I get on the mat, and they once they realize, oh, wait a minute, she's not like a little flower that's porcelain. Maybe she's made out of wood or something harder. I can handle that. Okay, it's not that intimidating. I Now that I have a higher belt, it's a combination of both. People are intimidated by my belt, and then they see someone that's older. How do we handle them? And so I have found that I don't like to tell people to go light. Don't be explosive. That's my favorite word. And especially women. Women tend to go harder on me than men. Right?
Really?
I-
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, yeah.
interesting.
and yeah, I have a theory why, but anyways,
Yeah, I'm curious.
I am when I yes, I am more afraid of the women in general, afraid quote unquote, than I am of the men. I I am more careful when I'm surrounded by women, and I love going to women's open mats, and I love it when class is filled with women. But when it comes to rolling, no, no, no. Okay, I know, and I think my theory is, how many of you have encountered men when you shake hands or you fist bump someone and they tell you, please don't go hard on me, I have an injury, let's just go a little slower, or can we just go? That doesn't happen. Men don't want to do that, especially they're not going to do it to an they're not going to say that to an older lady. They have to be in control, I guess. Not everybody, but I've never encountered one that says, I have an injury. And I do ask, is there any part of your body that is injured?
I think Marion hit it right on the head. I am actually 4'11" and about 110 pounds. So I'm not only old, I'm tiny. And when I roll with the guys, but in my gym, for the most part, they're going to defend till they get sick of me, and then they'll just flip me off. I mean, I'm just saying, because they're 230, 240. They don't want to sit on somebody that weighs 110 pounds. But the girls, they're going to kill me. I mean, there's not going to be easy with the little old lady. You forget that, So I'm prepared when I step up with a girl that she's going to give it all, and I best be on a game. It's just, but she's exactly right. Exactly right.
Head coach, but most of my students are guys, like 90% is male, and I train not just athletes, but I train all the coaches too. We have about 20 coaches, and just I always talk about the importance of non-attribute training. Like if you use the strength and the speed and explosiveness, that can be replaced with the skills. So I always emphasize on non-attribute training, and everybody's so far a good training partner. So, and then improve fast too. So
That's amazing. Have you had any experience? I know you came in later as well. Did you have any experience with ageism in the sport at all?
like when I was doing judo in the judo club, like 45, I was in the best shape ever, and little by little, yes, I realized that when I injured, I can't really train for a few weeks or a few months. So I started just realizing that like I said, train smart, and just not to use attribute. Like I'm 100 pound, and oldest and the smallest, and the weakest in the gym. So I try to focus on technique, skills. That's what I tell all my athletes too.
No, absolutely. Did you want to add something with your experience? Have you had any experience, Elaine, with ageism? I think I cut you off there.
I not really. I mean, my
good.
professors have been just so encouraging. Now, every once in a while, if there's a new white belt guy who's come in and I'm rotating around to do some specific training with him, my professor will come over and say, "You need to be careful with her. Don't be stupid." So And I appreciate that because, white belts can be a little spazzy, especially if they're young boys. They're looking at somebody, I'm not going to let her beat me, which so I can, quite often. So it's an ego thing with the younger men who are new in the gym. But other than that, I mean, I've had a great time with my gym. They've been just really good, both the men and the women. Said I might get to be a black belt by the time I'm 80, and I'll need a walker to get to that. I'm not like these women that are already there and doing great. I'm still struggling in my purple belt.
That's amazing. Well, when you hit 80, we'll do our Jiu Jitsu in your 80s episode.
In their 80s and 90s,
Yeah.
sure have.
So I'm curious, what has been some of the biggest challenges that you've faced in your Jiu Jitsu journey, and what has kind of got you through that?
Not just me, but sometimes at the gym, like we talked about, like guys, go against it with the women, and they tend to, try to teach women as, like they don't have a skill or knowledge. So, even like beginners, guys, they started teaching, during the practice and stuff. So sometimes I have to tell whole class that, it's not acceptable.
You gotta nip it in the butt.
Yeah. So I guess it's mansplaining, I guess.
How about you, Marion? What's been some of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome, and how did you get through it?
So for me, the biggest challenge was the fear of getting thrown. Anytime I would have to start standing, I would almost panic. I would not let anybody know, but I probably, because I had an accident when I was very, very young, and sometimes your body has this memory when you come across some moves, at least for me, and it just stops me sometimes, and I know it's fear. So I have to be very aware of when something like that triggers. So I had to learn how to ask for what I want or what I like and what I don't want, even and when it's not acceptable to do certain things for me. And the very first time that I became aware that I was allowed to do that, because I had a martial arts training for many years prior to jiu-jitsu, so more like soldier-like, and also, my very strict father, everything had to be just so. When I started going to women's camps and women's open mats, I realized in conversations and in seminars that it's okay to say, I don't want to do that, or yes, I want to do that. And it's okay to take ownership. Nobody, no instructor, no voodoo, no one is going to be my boss of me when I'm taking a lesson. I respect everybody, and I have a great time. But it was the very first time, my very first women's camp, and were having a conversation, and I was in awe of these women that said, no, you could say no. And you think that I was like 15 years old. I said, you can? Really? You can say no? Oh my God. So that was very significant. And that's what I tell everybody. I tell the newcomers, the men and the women, it's okay to acknowledge that your body cannot move just like somebody else's body. And the sooner you recognize that you're allowed to say, wait a minute, let me just see first, you have to be respectful of that. So for me, that once I got that information in my head, which was maybe 6 months into my training, everything changed and I fell in love. Then you just couldn't get me out.
Now these ladies have already made it to the black belt. They're doing really great. And I find my biggest challenges as I've aged is I got CRS. I can't remember stuff. I can walk out of that gym and go, what the heck did we just do? I mean, it's embarrassing. So a lot of times I'm videoing what the teacher's teaching so I can go home and look at it and go, duh, there it is. It is harder for me to retain what I've been taught. I can tell people, look, I'm not as flexible. This move is not going to work for me. And the professor will say, okay, then try this. Tweak it a little this way. That is extremely helpful. And I feel comfortable saying that to my professor or my partner. We're going to do something, and I'm going to say, I am not going to be good at this. I'm going to give it my best shot, but I'm just saying, I'm not going to be good at this. And sometimes I'm better than I think I'm going to be, and sometimes I'm exactly right. I'm not particularly flexible. Never have been. So that's, but it's an age thing, and I did have a fight stop during a competition because the referee said the lady was going to break my arm and I'm too hard-headed to tap.
Oh my God.
So there you go. I stood up and I said, I didn't tap. He said, she was going to break your arm. Okay.
And that kind of segues into my next topic that I wanted to hit is I know that some of you all are still competing out there. And I was talking to our ladies in our 60s, and they were saying it's hard to fill up the brackets. And I can only imagine for you, Elaine, it's even harder because a lot of the women who are aging into their 70s have been doing it for a little bit. Tell me a little bit about your experiences and the challenges that you have in competition in regards to that.
Well, I'm Master 7, so that's 61 and over, and here I am, 75. So even at the beginning, it seemed like to me, every person I fought, they got their belt after they fought me. When I had just gotten the belt I was in, they were fixing to go to the next belt. But I signed up for PANS, but there's nobody in my bracket. And my husband really doesn't like Las Vegas, even though I might be able to go out with the girls if there's anybody into that purple belt. But all my friends that I fought are now brown belts. Well, that's not helpful for me. Even if I want to compete, I don't want to drop down to the 50s. Master 6 is in the 50s. That's 20 more years. And even my professor said, don't do that, Elaine. I've done it a few times, but he didn't like it. So I don't know. Do any of the other women compete, or they're teaching mainly?
Actually, I met you at Worlds, Elaine.
Oh, thank you.
I met you and your husband at Worlds. Yes. So for me, I think the older I get, I still have the bug. I would love to say that I want that I'm going to compete, but when I competed the last time, I got hurt, and it took me a very long time to feel that I go all out without having to worry about my injury. But so that's very important. But at the same time, I feel maybe the fear, I don't know how much is in my head, how much is true. When you're 40 and 50, 10 years is not that much of a difference. Between 50 and 60, 10 years was not that much of a difference. 60 to 70, it's a huge difference. When I turned 65, I started noticing the differences. I can't name them right now because in my head, I do Jiu Jitsu and I'm in there, right? But I have to, it's not the same.
No,
so,
right. You're so right.
So I've been writing to IJJS. Why don't you start a Master 8 system? They should.
It was funny. We did the 60s episode yesterday, and one of the ladies called it a dumping ground. So it's like Master 7 is a dumping ground for everybody 60 and above.
Yeah.
Heavyweight is like a dumping ground for 160 and above, right? So it's just like it's a crapshoot. There's so many different ages in there, and then they talked about having to fight down as well in age, as in weight and stuff like that. But Lily, I'm curious, well, do you have any insight that you'd like to add in on this as well? I know you're a coach. I'm not sure if you compete too much anymore, but I know you do, you have in the past.
I always feel that, as a competitor, your focus is yourself, Sometimes you have to be selfish, because you have to, train for yourself to win at the tournament, So it's really hard to kind of do together, coaching and, competing. Because coach, you are second, like your focus is your athletes, So I have a passion of coaching. So yeah, yesterday I took, some guys for tournament and too. So I really enjoy coaching, getting ready for the, tournament and then honoring and stuff. So yeah, that's my passion for now. So I can really dedicate to other, next generation,
Absolutely. Do you find that like, so my next question is, how do we get more mature women to come to the sport? Do you find that just by being there, you're attracting more women that are in your demographic to want to come out? Or do you have any kind of insight? Like, how can we, I think it's super important, right, for women, period, to know how to defend themselves. So what are some things that we can do to attract women that are in your age demographic? I mean, what is the big fear? I think the big fears are right. It's kind of violent. It's kind of scary, right? And people are afraid of getting hurt, which I understand because we heal slower as we get older. But I'm curious to see what would you guys what things could you think of that could maybe make it a little bit more enticing? Or why
Yeah.
should they train? If they're watching this, why should they come and train?
Yeah, so at the, our gym is a MMA gym, and I think just doing jiu-jitsu mostly on the ground is pretty intimidating, because daily life you just, walk on your feet, So a lot of women sign up with boxing boot camp or kickboxing, and then just while they are working on the stand-up punching, kicking, they see like, oh, there are women, coaching jiu-jitsu, then they get curious. So little by little, So I think some, yeah, just try to have empathy, like, yeah, sometimes intimidating, but, like again, we train, not to go really, you know, try to kill each other, but just to get better, in defending yourself, kind of safe, creating safe environment is, our motto.
I like the idea of age specific self-defense, utilizing things that are specific to walking with a walker, walking with a cane. I think those are some really interesting things. That's a really interesting idea to run with. But what else, Elaine, was there anything else you'd like to add?
Having most of my friends now, of course, are near my age or at my age or older, and they're too worried about brittle bones. They said, "My gosh, that would kill me if I did that." But I have gone through some self-defense things that I've learned with them. When I'm on a horseback riding trip, we'll get together at night and I'll go, "Okay, girls, let me show you just a few things." And they're so interested that I really think like a self-defense class for women might encourage them to say, that might actually be fun. Even if they're in their 50s, 70s is really hard. You have to be mentally want to do it as well as physically able to do it. But everybody needs self-defense of some kind or another. And just getting them, I think that's great. I really do. My gym is starting a self-defense women's class. Good for you. Let's do that.
Absolutely. That's a great way to attract women of all ages.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And like you said, Lily, too, like I started out with kickboxing and then I graduated into jujitsu because kickboxing was a little bit more in my comfort zone, right? Nobody's in my personal space. They're not on me and, and sweating on me and so it's a lot more comfortable, right? To just kick and punch. But what do you do when you go on the ground? You got to know what to do, right? So that's where jujitsu. But it is a good, yeah, I mean, all of you touched on some really amazing points that I think are really awesome things for people listening, especially academy owners, to look at implementing. Um, and so I'm curious, this is probably the question that everybody's tuned in. What is the secret? How do we keep training into our 70s or 80s? What are some things that you guys do? Is recovery important? What are some regimens that you do for recovery? How can we, I mean, we all look up to y'all. How can we be you when we are still like training? That's the goal, right? It's to train, roll forever, right? So I'm curious. Let me know what is the secret?
I think consistency is very important. I had to have eye surgery a year and a half ago, and I had to be off the mat. But even though I was not allowed to train, I showed up. And I think it's part of it's like with everything that one does. You're going to get better with repetition. It's the discipline. I don't care how old you are. Discipline is hard. There are days that are really bad days, and it's very hard to show up. And there are days I feel like Superwoman, and then somebody does something to me, and I realize, whoops, I'm not Superwoman. But here, so I think that being consistent and committed, if for me, that is the most important thing. If I don't go because I'm feeling tired or my shoulder hurts, then I start speaking. My head does mean things to me, and it doesn't matter. As long as I can still walk and I can still do function, I am going to shower, get myself into the gym, and come back feeling amazing after a couple hours in the gym. Yes, it's hard, but I'm getting that for people that are younger, if they're injured or they had a really hard day or they had to deal with all these babies and whatever. I mean, my grandchildren come when I want them to come, so I don't have to deal with them anymore. I don't have to deal with children anymore. But we all have our different challenges, and I try not to base myself the days that are very, very hard to get into the gym.
She said exactly what I would say. I mean, it's just days you don't want to go, but you drag yourself anyway. And I'm always glad that I went. I'm always glad that I went. I don't always want to go. In fact, a lot of times I don't. But I get there and I'm just so glad that I made myself go. So she's right. It's just consistency and persistency at our age. I think for any athlete, truthfully, I mean, I hear it from the younger kids too. It's not just us.
Do you all do anything for recovery? Or Lily, is there anything you want to add before we move into recovery question?
Yeah, yeah, I like to help, yeah, myself too, but I like to focus on like motivation, like coming from inside, like internal, intrinsic motivation, like having fun, or like just me to reach, even small goals, like even every day, like, okay, today, okay, I'm gonna pass so and so's guard, or something like that, and then you succeed, then pat on shoulder, just a little thing to motivate, something like a next belt, or even praise from coach you can't control. Like that's something from other people's, so instead of focusing on that, just what can I do to enjoy and feel motivated? So that's
Absolutely. That's what keeps you going, right? If you're not getting that good feeling, you're not going to keep going. And I think that's what we're all kind of
Yeah.
addicted to jujitsu, right? It's addicted to that good feeling that comes with jujitsu.
Yeah, and sometimes students like, oh, I don't feel that I'm getting better, But look with your your training partners, they're all getting better. So it's really hard to see that your improvement, But actually you are, So just I have to remind myself too,
No, absolutely. Is there anything, I'm going to open it up to you all for this last one. Is there anything that I haven't covered that you all think is relevant that we should be discussing on this?
Before we go there, one more thing, Shama.
Yeah, go for it.
I practice meditation. I learned meditation about 30 years ago, if not more. And it's a very simple kind of meditation. It's breathing, mostly breathing. And I think that when I'm very stressed or my body is tense and very stressed from training, I do extra meditation.
I know, we've seen an amazing movement, and I'm going to circle back to competition because I think it's something important. We saw an amazing movement with the Masters movement where we started seeing more Masters divisions. And I was joking with the 60s group that, we're going to be needing Master 8, we're going to be Master 9. And I think the time is now, from what you guys are hearing, is that we need some additional divisions at this point because there is a need. But my question is, what I've seen in the past is it's all about the numbers, right? It's all about getting more women to come out and compete and showing IBJJF, especially since they're one of the big ones, that we are out there. There is this demographic. So what would you say to other women, and this is probably for you, Marion and Elaine, that are kind of intimidated by competition? What would you say to them to say, hey, you know what, maybe just give it a try, give it a shot one time? And do you think that it is important to compete, or is it really up to the individual person what they want to do?
I would not force anybody to compete. We all have our own demons. But if somebody has the bug to compete and they've never competed and they're older, I think knowing that they're competing against someone similar in age is part of the motivation. At the same time, when I think of what would be my next competition right now, I don't know that I want to get out there if I'm not feeling 100% injury free, because I would be competing with people that just turned 60 and have been competing a lot more than I have. And that age difference is huge. I may not be as fast or as explosive, or I may be better. I think it's very personal, and I think it should be a decision that people do very, very carefully.
What about you?
We don't feel fast, right?
I don't really think the numbers are there for Master 8, unless it's going to be just brown or black belt. I'm a rare purple, that's gotten most of them are going to be brown or black, and they don't want to compete anymore. Why would they? I mean, it's they've already, they've proven what they want to do. I just don't think the numbers are there to go to it, which of course does not help me, but no. I don't, I can't see it myself.
There's
personally.
a lot of older ladies that are brown belts that like to compete.
But not purple, I guess.
Well, yeah, I've got friends that do. They are Master 7, but they're not above. I guess Master 8 would be what, over 71 and over?
About the competing, like I said earlier, yeah, I'm not interested in competing anymore, but I'm happy to work with all different age competitors to, because yeah, some people really like to compete, and yeah, that's a good thing that's what their passion is.
So I'm going to go ahead and close out. Some of you have been a part of Jiu Jitsu community a little bit longer than others, but we've seen a lot of tremendous change when it comes to women in the sport. What is something that you would like to see moving forward? What are some changes that you see that there's room for us to improve?
Sometimes, yeah, it's getting better, but like still like jiu-jitsu, community is male dominated, and also yeah, women often, women ignored. Like for example, one time at the local tournament, the host announced that thank you for coming to competition. I like to say thank you to all the coaches who brought competitors, and please come on the stage, because I want to say thank you to all the coaches in person. So I went there, got on the stage with maybe 20 other coaches. I was the only woman, and he went to each coach, shake hands, say thank you, and he skipped me.
Oh,
Whoa.
oh, geez.
Knock him off the stage.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so I dealt with so many, because for a long time I was the only coach, women coach, in like yeah, worlds, and just local, being ignored many times.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that makes me
So
mad.
I hope this kind of thing, will change
Yeah,
soon.
no, that's important. I think you hit it right on the nail. Is like not only are and that's something that's really important to us here at Girls and Geese, is putting women in leadership positions and giving them the opportunities so that we normalize women being coaches. We normalize women being instructors. We normalize them being in these positions, referees, having these all these different areas, and making it making space available for women as well, and that's definitely something that has to change for sure.
Right.
We're working on it. More and more women are getting their black belts too, right? So that's opening up. More women
Great.
are out there, and they, especially, and now look at all these little girls, look at all these little girls that are like looking up to all of us, in jujitsu, that are grown adults, and they have their whole life to follow that path, as opposed to a lot of us who found it as adults, So imagine where we're gonna go. Like I definitely think this is going to be an issue of the past, but you women are really charging forward and showing us we can compete, we can own academies, we can teach, we can instruct, we can coach, So thank you so much for that. Like I said, if there's anything else you'd like to add, feel free, and if not, we'll go ahead and close everything out for today. It was a pleasure having you guys.
Okay, thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank
It
you. It's lovely to meet you guys.
was very nice meeting you.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in today. It was an absolute pleasure. I hope you learned as much as I did. Like I said, these women are the end goal. This is what we all want to be able to do, is keep rolling throughout the whole duration of our life, right? Jiu-jitsu is not something that we burn out on. We want to keep continuing. Even when we can't walk anymore, we still want to be able to roll. So thank you so much, everybody, for being a part of this. Thank you for tuning in. And aloha. Take care, everybody.